Skeleton Key here. Welcome or welcome back to my channel, whether you are joining me live or if you are watching this in the archive on YouTube. But either way, I hope you'll either hop in the chat or add some comments. But this is my weekly book report for week 4 of 2024. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, last night, I haven't been getting really good sleep lately. And last night I was just so wiped out. So I put it off to tonight and I'm a little more awake. So let's hope this goes well. And because I remember last week I was also pretty wiped out. And yeah, you could probably tell that I was really tired. Not completely with it. So this should go a lot better. Let's see. So let's just take a look at some of the I finished 5 books last week. So we'll just take a look at those. And that'll take us into Nevermore and everything. But there we go. So the first thing we have down here, let's see, go One's Company by Ashley Hudson. And I read that for the Effed Up Book Club. And it was pretty effed up. It was really interesting. It's hard to say I enjoyed it, but I really appreciated a lot of what it was doing. Our main character, Bonnie, she is, well, you figure out pretty quickly she's experienced some major trauma in her life, and well, her family situation when she was a kid wasn't great, and she's like got one best friend, and I guess there was this traumatic incident, and that really affected a lot of her relationships, including her relationship with her bestie. And while she is physically recovering from this trauma, which I don't want to say exactly what happened because it kind of develops throughout, is revealed throughout the book exactly what happened, and also Bonnie's not the most reliable narrator in the world. Maybe because of the trauma, or maybe that's just how Bonnie is. But as she is physically recovering and staying with her friend, she is introduced to Three's Company, which was it was a real show. I grew up watching it. It was started in the 70s. And so this story is set in, pretty much our time. So these are all in reruns. This is all nostalgia for people, if they even know what it is. And yeah, there were people in the book club who didn't know it was a real show. It was a real show. Involves this guy and 2 girls who live together, and it's platonic relationship. But they have to convince, they have to tell the landlord that Jack, the guy in the trio, is gay because, or it's the 70s, because it's against the rules for heterosexuals, opposite sex, to live together in that apartment complex. So you've got these 2 girls, Chrissy, and well, it starts off with Chrissy. Janet is, through the whole thing. So Janet and Chrissy and Jack, and it's a sitcom. It's nothing earth-shattering. It's, silly misunderstandings for the most part. There's not not a lot of drama. There's some slapstick comedy. It's just kind of a silly little comedy. And you know, it's the 70s, so yeah, in Southern California, so you've got some of that lifestyle stuff that um was super popular then. You know, it's like I also watched Chips, which if you haven't heard of Three's Company, you probably haven't heard of Chips either. But so yeah, that stuff was all the rage. But she discovers this, and I think I'm trying to remember how old Bonnie was in this. I don't think Bonnie was alive when it was first airing. But anyway, she becomes obsessed with this show, Three's Company. And she's like, I want to just, this is the world I want, where nothing long term bad happens. And, you know, it's just silliness and fun. And yeah, so, which is, you know, fine. You know, she's working some dead end job that she doesn't care about. And she just wants to be left alone. Um, and, you know, so this is, it's like, okay, well, fine, whatever. And then she wins the lottery. Yeah, like the big lottery. I don't know, like $1 billion lottery, you know, not some measly $10 million thing. And she basically has unlimited funds to do whatever she wants. So she decides to build herself the world of Three's Company. She gets this remote location, she buys this house. She doesn't really need the main house, but it's there, you know, for like, you know, talking to contractors and things. And she, you know, she hires a contractor, and she's got all these rules and contracts and NDAs and everything. This is a big, big secret. And yeah, so she builds, you know, she builds the apartment complex, she builds the Janet's flower shop where she works. She, you know, builds this little mini town. Um, it's not a Southern California setting, but you know, um, take what you can get. And you know, she needs something remote. So she's got this, and it's going, and of course, you know, it can't last, but it's yeah, there was so much. I didn't know where this was going. This was very unpredictable to me. I mean, it's like, well, this can't end well. Um, and it doesn't end well. But the journey there, and you know, her friend enters back in every now and then, and trying to get her to come back to the world. And they're yeah, it's really interesting. Um, there's some things I think might have been handled a little bit better, but at the same time, I look at it and think, no, I think it needed to be flawed because Bonnie's outlook was so flawed. Um, and the ending is a little ambiguous, but it's I think it's the way the ending needed to be. But anyway, if you're looking for something, especially if you remember Three's Company and need a little nostalgia jolt, yeah, this is a good one. You'll never watch the reruns the same way again, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. So next up, we've got Red Hood by Alana K. Arnold. And I had read, also for Effed Up Book Club, I had read previously Damsel by that author. And I can't remember. I think I may have given that one 3 stars. I don't know. It was, and they're both YA books. So I had to remember I am not the audience for this. And, and especially so in Red Hood. Red Hood is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. It's a werewolf story. and that becomes pretty clear. I mean, if you can't tell by the cover, yeah, it's a werewolf story, and I appreciated a I don't know if I'd say a lot, but I appreciated some of the things this book was trying to do. Um, One, it is very sex positive and very matter of fact in matters of biology. Um, I okay, so there are some pretty graphic to the point of being instructional sex scenes. Um, and I feel like they kind of needed to be like that for this audience, especially considering how hard it is for teenage girls to get real information on sex and uh, reproductive choices, anything like that. So I appreciated that it was doing that, and that it was very matter of fact about menstruation. Like I said, I appreciated that. I did not enjoy that. And that's one thing I really disliked about the book is that it's very rah rah, periods are great, girl power, blood. And I'm like, ah, no, no. I am not on board with that at all. It's like if you want to be comfortable with your periods, fine, go right ahead. But no, I am not there. I am not there with you. Uh, and it's also felt, and I'm not sure I'm using this phrase right. Um, Let me know if you know one way or the other, especially if I'm using this wrong. But I feel like this was very gender essentialist. Like to be a real girl or a real woman, you have to be like gushing blood from your nethers. And I'm like, that just feels very wrong to me. I don't know if it was intentionally written to it felt transphobic to me. I don't know if it was intentionally written or if that's just sort of a side effect of being all pro menstruation. Um, I don't know. Uh, but I do really kind of worry about that because I mean it was very heteronormative. And I mean a book doesn't have to be all things to all people, but I mean, it wasn't like there weren't even any, like, gay couples in the background or anything, or yeah, it was super heteronormative. It focused so much on, you know, boys with girls and I mean, yeah, the focus was on the wolves being, the rapists. Uh Yeah, it's a good thing I'm not monetized because, yeah, the stuff I'm talking about with this book, there's not really any way around it. Um, but yeah, it's a werewolf story in which um, our heroine finds out that she's from a line of basically werewolf hunters. Um, I don't think that's much of a spoiler. It becomes pretty clear pretty quickly. Uh, and there it's in that storyline, I can see how it's a good storyline for, explaining to young women that you can't trust every man. I would have been happier if there'd been more of a range of men and boys in this but there was her boyfriend who was a good guy, and then every other boy and man in the story, well, maybe there was one other, I don't know. Might have been one other good guy, but we hardly ever saw him. he was just had a few scenes that he was kind of incidental in. But every other male character in the book is a wolf. Is a bad dude. I did appreciate the friendship group that that came about as a result of these situations. Because it is set in high school, and yeah, these are high schoolers, and they do have sex, and it's pretty graphic. It, I'm a middle-aged woman, and I was really super uncomfortable reading that or listening to it, but I'm not the intended audience. Yeah, but I gave it 2 stars because I appreciated a lot of things about this story, but and I liked the characters and the friendships that were formed, but I just it had a lot of problems. And not just because I'm a middle-aged lady. It was there's a lot of stuff in here that I think is super problematic for any reader, or I would hope would be. So, so yeah, read it at your own discretion. I'm not gonna disrecommend it, but yeah, kind of be aware going in that there's some questionable stuff in there. Let's see, we'll talk about Poe here in a little bit. So next we've got Miss Eliza's English Kitchen. Oh, I haven't been showing you the covers. I'm like clicking through. Let me go back and just show you one's company real quick. Yeah, so you've got this canary in a bird cage, and there is a canary in the story. It's and that's probably not a spoiler. But yeah, so that's pretty thematic. Um, and then Red Hood, you can see the cover a little bit better there. The wolf pelt, and of course there's blood on the cover, and that kind of looks like another wolf image, I think. And you got the moon symbology there. Yeah. And now on to Miss Eliza's English Kitchen, a novel of Victorian cookery and friendship. Okay, so this I read for the Old Town Library's book club, and overall I enjoyed it. The 4 stars, yeah, I rounded up from like 3.5-ish. It and mainly just because I enjoyed it and I liked all the food talk and the cookery talk um and the sort of the historical setting. I liked that. Um the story, it's historical fiction based on a true story. Eliza Acton was a real woman and a real writer. She did write poetry books, and she wrote this cookery book, and she wrote a book about bread, and I think she wrote another food adjacent book of some sort, and maybe another poetry book. But anyway, she was a real person, and her assistant was a real person. Um, and there are other characters in the book who are real people. But a lot of this is just, we didn't know, so we just made shit up. and I've been seeing a lot of historical fiction doing this lately, and I'm coming to the conclusion that I don't really like it. Either give me a biography where you point out all the stuff that you don't know and maybe some conjectures about things that might have happened. Um, like this, she might have had a daughter. In the book, she has a daughter that was born in France and adopted out to her well, I mean, it's a spoiler, I guess, but I mean, it was really a predictable spoiler as soon as you figure out, oh, she had a daughter. It's one of those obvious tropes. She had a daughter out of wedlock and she gave it up for adoption, and her sister took it, her married sister, and raised it with her children, and her, not it. But it's just so tropey. It's like, couldn't you have gone some sort of different direction if you were making shit up? Make up some cool shit? But it was tropes like that. And that seems to be a super popular one for this style of fictionalized biography kind of thing. And okay, I mean, yeah, having children out of wedlock was a super common thing, and giving them up for adoption, that was a super common thing. But do we always have to do that? I'm tired of that. But there are all these other tropes. And Anne, her assistant, when she writes this cookery book, they had almost nothing to go on. Or I guess the author, Annabelle Abbs, when she was, researching the real people, she had almost nothing to go on for Anne. So Anne is pretty much just a creation. I liked Anne. I liked her character. But then there were things that, they added in so much stuff that I just didn't really quite. I felt like there was just too much stuff just kind of stuffed in there. And so that didn't sit real well with me. Yeah, and then there's another character that I tried looking up, and no, apparently he was a complete work of fiction too. They said they found a recipe with his name on it, so they created this whole subplot with him. And if you just take it by itself and just pretend that it's complete fiction, it's a pretty fun read. But yeah. I'm not going to say this is a bad book. It's a decent read. It's an interesting read. But it could have been so much better, I feel. I feel like there were a lot of missed opportunities. It just felt like a bunch of tropes just kind of smashed together, and it did not feel balanced. And for a book about cookbook writing, I feel like it should be more balanced. The flavors should meld properly. But oh well. Okay, so now let's go back and look at the Poe stuff. So wrapping up Nevermore. So the only other thing that I read last week was I finished up this Telltale Heart and Black Cat audiobook. So this was a really interesting pairing. I'm glad Kat picked these two and put them together. and I'm glad that I was able to find a narration. And Sam Cusi, I really enjoyed his narration. He's got this really nice voice with this nice deep timbre, rich timbre to it, and yeah, he did a good job. It's a lot of gravitas. Um, but the Telltale Heart and the Black Cat have some very similar concepts and themes. And so it was really interesting. I've never read them back to back like this before. And they're so short. I don't want to give spoilers, but I would encourage you, if you've never read them back to back, give that a listen and see what you think. I mean, those are the two. Yeah, the Telltale Heart. I can't even remember the last time I've read that. That I had read that. It was the first time I read it. I would swear I was in like first grade, and it was read aloud to us. That and The Pit and the Pendulum in first grade. I'd swear it was first grade. But it was the 70s. So yeah, they did weird things like that. Reading horror stories to first graders. But yeah, that feels a bit young to me, but who knows? The kids are morbid little creatures, so it's probably about right. Let's see. And then Metzingerstein, there's nothing really to this cover. And I actually read it in my copy of His Hideous Heart, but that's downstairs, and my hips are not really up for going up and down the stairs again tonight. Nope. Metzingerstein, it's set in Hungary, and I needed a book that was set in a landlocked country. So I'm like, oh, hey, this works. There's these two rival families, the Metzingersteins and the Berlifitzings. And so you've got this theme of family feud that he likes to use. And so that was interesting. There were a lot of interesting elements in this. There's like this tapestry that moves or changes when you look away. There's this weird horse. There's what else? There's just all these really, really weird, strange elements that were awesome, but they did not fit together. There was a plot, I think, but I don't know what exactly happened. This was very vibes heavy. Lots and lots and lots of vibes. It was really spooky, really creepy, but I don't know what the hell happened in the story. So it's not one of his better works. But if you just want some really spooky, creepy vibes and some really neat elements to kind of look at and play with in your head, it's kind of a cool read. So yeah, give it a shot. See what you think. And I also read the retelling, which was, I think she rode a fiery horse or something like that. Oh, I can't remember what the title was. By Kinder Blake, I believe, wrote that one, and that was in His Hideous Heart. So that's proving to be a really fun anthology, going back and forth between the original Poe story and then this inspiration from Poe, this collection of stories. Yeah. So far I'm still recommending that. That's going well, and I will continue to read in that. So this I didn't read this during this Metzingerstein. I didn't read it during Nevermore. I read that, just yesterday or the day before or something like that. Anyway, or no, what was it? No, that was Sunday. I think I read that on Sunday. And after Nevermore had ended, but I'm going to be reading some Poe for a while, because I am. Let's see. Shall I go ahead and I'm going to quit sharing for now. All right, so I am continuing on with the Mardi Gras readathon that Kat is also doing. And it's and that's the one that I'm reading New Orleans Warning for, and so I'll be continuing with that. And that's the group read for Mardi Gras, but one of the prompts is to read a book about a ball or an elegant event, Masque of the Red Death, right there. So, and that one is in His Hideous Heart, so it has a retelling. And there's also the Cory Doctorow retelling, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't found that, and you should be able to find a free copy online. I found a free download, and I think it's also part of Radicalized, which is like a collection of 4 novellas, and it's one of the novellas. And I think its title is just Masque of the Red Death. But you should be able to find a copy of that online for free or DRM free, because Cory is really not fond of DRM. And that's an understatement. And so let's see. So I did Miss Eliza's English Kitchen and Red Hood both counted for this. So Miss Eliza's English Kitchen was read a book related to or about food. So lots of food in there. And then read a book about a crew or a group of friends, and Red Hood. I talked about the friendship group that developed throughout the story. So there's that. Let's see. So then I'm going to read probably tomorrow. I expect I'll read Masque of the Red Death by Poe. And then I'd like to get another one. I might get finished with Leap of Faith by Queen Noor for read a book about royalty. So, yeah, I've been listening to that, and she narrates the introduction, but then it's another woman who narrates the book itself. But she's doing a great job, and it's really interesting. Because there was so much stuff throughout her lifetime. She's, I think, about my mother's age. And so, it's a generation or two back, and all sorts of stuff that either I wasn't alive for or was too young to really have much sense of what was going on in the Middle East. And also in this country with the Vietnam War protests and things like that, and civil rights movement. And it was kind of interesting to hear her talking about Queen Noor's participation in the civil rights movement, and describing these things that my mother had described to me, that when she was a student on campus in the 60s, that she was doing. So I was like, oh, okay. So it's kind of an interesting little look at some of world history, and her place in it, and her role and preparation for her role. That she hasn't talked much about her yet, about her role in leading a country with her husband, King Hussein. But Yeah, I'm really appreciating that. And that one was recommended to me by my friend Jules. So, yeah. Thank you, Jules. And let's see. So I think, yeah, looking ahead, so we'll be finishing up the Mardi Gras Readathon. That will finish up on February 13th. So I've got a couple weeks. And so I'll have 5 more prompts, probably 5 or 6 more prompts to finish up. Should be able to do that, especially since New Orleans Morning will cover several of those prompts. And some of the other reads are pretty short. What else am I reading in January? I did start. I haven't got very far into it. This is Good Girls Don't Die, and this was for the Sleep When I'm Dead book club. And this is by Christina Henry. I was getting Christina Henry and Christina Lauren mixed up. I've never read anything by either one of them, but they're very different writers. This is horror. Christina Lauren writes romance, like rom-com kind of stuff. This is not a rom-com, at least as far as I can tell. So it's about 3 different women and it's like 3 stories, but then there's a 4th part that wraps them up or ties them together. I wasn't able to attend the live show for this book club discussion. That was last night, and I was at Old Town Library last night, and so I missed that. And so today I listened to just the non-spoilery part of it, and somebody said something about, well, I think somebody said that it was like they considered it a ripoff of the movies. I'm like, what movies? And then they said, yeah, if you haven't watched the movies, don't bother. So I don't know what movies. So I need to find it. If you know what movies, please let me know. What movies are they ripping off? Or not ripping off. I'm not accusing Christina Henry of any anything. Okay, so but it's intriguing so far, but it does kind of give the sense of relating to something that I probably should already have, some content that I should already have consumed in order to know what's going on. So I'll see if I can figure out what that's about. So I may finish this. I may just set it aside. I may completely DNF it. I don't know. And then I really do hope that I get back to the Bone Witch, because this is really this is Rin Chipeko, and it's really interesting. And I need to read this for, I think it's a Becca in the books. It's a Becca rec, and I need a Becca rec. So I don't have to read it in January, but if I can get that one finished this month or early next month, that would be awesome. And then also, I do need to finish in January. Well, not this entire thing, although this is really short, and I probably could finish the entire thing. But this is Nathanuary. And now I've forgotten. I'll have to look it up and see who is running that readathon. It's through the month of January to read at least one short story by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I don't know if you can see that. But this is Young Goodman Brown and Other Short Stories by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And I've read several in here already. Some of them I read in high school. And And yeah, I'm going back and rereading it. Like The Birthmark, I reread last year. I'd never read Dr. Heidegger's Experiment, so I read that last year. So next up is Rappaccini's Daughter, which I also need to read in order to continue with another book that I started, something about, it's like, it's kind of a story, almost steampunky, but it's kind of riffing on like Dr. Jekyll. Is that Dr. Yeah, Dr. Jekyll's daughter or Mr. Hyde's daughter, I forget which. And Sherlock Holmes is in there, and I'm blanking on the title and author both, but there is Rappaccini's Daughter is a character in the book. And so I'm like, oh, well, I need to read Rappaccini's Daughter. So that is on my agenda for tomorrow, is to read Rappaccini's Daughter. All right. And now I think that takes us into looking into February. There were several, and this was just kind of, this is silly, but there were several different prompts. There was one, read a book with a unicorn, read a book in, the appropriate season. So, and several other things, I think, but this is a unicorn named Sparkle and the Perfect Valentine. So I'm saving this I picked this up at the library. So I'm saving this for February so that it will be Valentine's Day adjacent, and in season. So this is just a cute little picture book. I don't know anything about it. I'm not even opening it till February. So there it is. It looks cute. It's very sparkly. Let's see. Oh, also I need to finish A Master of Jen. I've started this like 3 or 4 times, and then I get interrupted, and then it's like, oh, I better restart it. So gotta get through this. But this is I'm gonna read this for BYO Book Club, which is, it's sort of like Genreland in that the book club members don't all read the same assigned book. There's a theme, and everyone brings a book on the theme and talks about it. And this is set in P. Djeli Clark's Steampunk Cairo. And the theme for next month for BYO Book is African Future Month, as opposed to African American History Month. No, Black Future Month. Yeah, and then so there's African futurism, there's Afrofuturism, so there's some various things that could refer to, but African Future Month or Black Future Month, and that's a reference to N.K. Jemisin. I think, didn't N.K. Jemisin put together the anthology When is Black Future Month? I think so. Oh, I should have looked that up. But anyway, so that's A Master of Jen, and it's a murder mystery, and it's all nice and steampunky. And so Black Future Month and Afrofuturism and African Futurism, which are 2 different schools of thought on how that should be interpreted. But it doesn't necessarily have to be set in the future, but like Everfair, which is set in in an African country that did not get colonized, and so it's an alternate history. This is alternate history Cairo. So yeah, there's a lot of different stuff and really imaginative stuff that counts for that. So, and I love P. Djeli Clark's work. I have not been disappointed by P. Djeli Clark yet. All right. Let's see. And then, okay, this is City Under One Roof. I got this from the library. And this is a murder mystery set in Alaska. And I think I've talked about it a little bit before. But yeah, there's this like city that's basically just this big apartment complex out in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. And of course there's a murder. And so, yeah, I'm not far enough into it to tell you anything more than that. But I'm liking it so far. I like the characters, the way it's getting set up. I think it's going to be good. Oh, what else do we have for February? I do have a bunch of links down in the description below. And, but yeah, so at one point I was like, oh, Paige at Pages with Paige she does this on a monthly basis, this sort of deep dive into here are all of the upcoming readathons next month on YouTube, and she links to them. And so I have a link to that video for February, and there, yeah, I was watching that and I was like, oh, there's a bunch more I want to do. I cannot do all of them, but I think I am going to do the cat one. I'll have to go look at that one and see. I think it's sort of, I think there are like 3 prompts. It's like a cat on a cover and a cat as a character. I forget what, but I'm going to have to go look at that one. Because I am reading for LHR Society. I will be reading The Cat Who Saved Books. And it's not a Cat Who mystery, Lillian Jackson Brown. I read a bunch of those when I was younger. But it's The Cat Who Saved Books, and I believe it's Japanese. I'll have to go look at that one again. It's on, I don't have a physical copy of that. That is on, I think the library has it on Hoopla. So I'm going to get it there. But another one that I don't think I have a direct link to is Folklore February, and that's another one that Kat is doing. Kat has become one of my favorite booktubers lately. And it has 4 prompts, and it's just words. So you just kind of use your own imagination to figure out what fits that word. So there's mirth, magic, mystery, and monster. So I don't know what I'm going to do for mirth. I don't know. Unicorns are mythical, right? And I don't know. Maybe there's mirth in the Valentine unicorn book, Sparkle. So that might be my mirth book. But it's, so Folklore February covers the whole range of folklore, legends, myths, fairy tales. I forget what else included, but yeah. For magic, I think this will work. I have not read, it's a webtoon, but I haven't read any of it on the webtoon site. But I have the paperback of the first volume, and so it's Lore Olympus Volume 1. And that's a Hades and Persephone retelling. So it definitely counts for mythology. And so let's see. So mystery, a master of Jinn. Jinn, or, you know, that's folklore. Magic. So that, yeah, that would work for magic as well. Then monster, I recently downloaded an audiobook of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, right? I think that's Washington Irving. And I don't think I've ever actually read that story or even had it read to me. I've like seen movies and TV shows that were adapted from it, but I don't believe I've ever experienced the original story. So that should be interesting. Um, so yeah, maybe I'll read that and then rewatch the Christina Ricci version of the movie. I don't know. So there's that. What else is going on in February? Oh, Seasons of Reading is doing the Winter's Respite Readathon. And I've got a link to that blog, and you can see they've got all, every season they've got, and it's usually, I think, a month-long readathon. And some of them have kind of specific requirements for what counts. This one is Winter's Respite, so everything I read during the month of February counts for Winter's Respite. So, and I think that kind of gets me a little ways into February. I mean, I'm only going a week at a time, and I really do. I'm glad I started doing this because I mean, I do put together a monthly TBR for myself, but it's more of a pile of possibilities. And on a weekly basis, I'm able to focus a little bit more on what I actually can accomplish during the week. And kind of update you as well as myself on how I'm enjoying or not enjoying something, and deciding whether or not to continue with it. Yeah, so that's what I've been reading. That's what I'm planning to read. And so, yeah, in the chat or the comments, go ahead and let me know what you're reading. If you've got any opinions on any of these things that I'm reading, or if you disagree with me, that's fine too. Because, we can't all like all the same things. Or if you've got suggestions for things I might want to read for mirth, let's see. Yeah, I did notice I've got, and I don't know where exactly it would fit in the prompts, but it would fit in folklore in general. But I just saw downstairs, I have a copy of a book called Myths and Pagan Symbolism, or Symbols, or something like that. And that looked really interesting. I think I got that from my mom's library when I was visiting Dad in December. I think I picked that up there. It may be one I've promised to a friend. So maybe I'll read that one real quick so I can send it on. But let's see. Well, I think that is it. If you've enjoyed hearing me babble about books, go ahead and hit the like button, and yeah, and I hope you'll be back in future weeks, and hopefully I'll be a little bit more on schedule. But I'm also really liking getting back onto a regular schedule of, at the very least, I know I'm doing a weekly book report, and I feel like that's going to help me have something to kind of hang on to for scheduling and getting things organized a little bit better. I don't know when I'll be up for actually sitting down and editing videos. That might be a while yet, but in the meantime, I am having fun doing these live streams and also doing the little shorts here and there. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll talk at you later.